Okay, welcome back everybody. Of course, we are looking at Python for beginners, and today we're going to take a look at the random number generator. So the random number generator does exactly that. We are actually going to generate a random integer in our program. Now this is rather useful for things, and right now, just to get us give us a taste of what it does and how to execute it. That's all we're going to do right now. So we're going to put it into a program, really basic program. We're going to run a while loop structure, an if-else conditional statement, and we're going to try to guess the random number that the computer will throw at us. And if so, we don't actually win anything, but hopefully we'll have fun trying. Okay, so as you can see, I am using my comments. So I want to get all of us more accustomed, more used to using comments in our code. And these will become more and more important, and you'll see the value of them as our code becomes a bit more complex, does a few different things, and let's get there when we get there. But at the essence, learn to use comments so that you understand, or if somebody else is looking at your program, they understand what the code is trying to do. So just remember that the comment is not read by the computer as a line of instruction. It's there to inform the coder, the developer, the programmer what's going on with the instructions. So I'm going to do a couple of things. Now, the random module has to be imported. It's not readily accessible like most other things are in Python, so we do need to use the import keyword. So import random and assign true, which we see is blue, my Boolean value to my variable test. And as I have been indicating in previous videos, I want to become accustomed, or get everybody accustomed to assigning and using variables, because as we move along down the road, that concept of using variables for things becomes really the essence of our code. Okay, so right now we are going to assign a random number to a variable, a user input to a variable, and these print statements to variables. Okay, and then we could use them throughout our code without actually having to worry or change them in all those little pieces or all those segments that they will fit into. We could just change their values up here. So with that being said, I have three print statements to begin my program: message one, message two, and message three. So message one says, this program will challenge you with cunning and intelligence. Now you'll see I've got these \n characters. These are break characters. So what happens is when you put that into your string output, a new line. This is my new line escape key. So this will go down to the next line, and it will read cunning, comma, and intelligence, exclamation mark, then go to the next line. Okay. The next line reads, the computer will roll a six-sided die, break, go down a line. You need to guess that number, break, bring the cursor down, look for the number. And probably that should say guess the number, but all good for right now. So while test, and test is true. So while true, have the computer generate a random number. Now this isn't necessarily quite random as you might think. There are other programs out there that you can get, especially from GitHub. But this is going to generate a pseudo random number good for this purpose. Okay, so the random number will be between and inclusive of the 1 and the 6. I could easily change this to -10 and +10, or 1 and 100. But the thing to remember here is that it is inclusive of those parameters. So 1 and 6 plus 2, 3, 4, and 5. And it's generated by using the random module dot rand, R-A-N-D-I-N-T, parentheses, it's a function, and the two parameters, the two arguments. So from there, we're going to ask the user for input. Now remember, the user by default, the user input is a string. We want to automatically convert it to an integer because the Python program cannot make a comparison between a string and an integer, or a string and a float. Those two things have to be the same. So it has to compare a string with a string, an int with an int, a float with a float. And hopefully that makes sense. So this is going to be an integer, and this is going to be an integer. So it will take the random number, and compare it to the number that's inputted from the user. Those two things are integers, and we're using the double equal sign. So we're making the comparison. And remember about the if-else statement, that when the conditional statement is true, evaluates to true, execute the block of code underneath it, otherwise go to the next statement, okay? So that's what we're looking for. We're looking to see if this is true. If this is true, whenever it's true, you win, okay? And then tell me what the number was. If it is not true, you lose. And tell me what that number was. Tell me what the computer rolled, okay? So if one or the other is true, I will execute a print statement. Still, when either of them or when either of them do execute, go to this next line, value equals input. Ask the user if they want to do it again. So if I enter anything but the S, the program will run again. If I enter an S, if value dot lower, so if whatever it is, if they even played around with the capital S, it's going to convert it to a lower s. If lower s is equal to the same as the lower s, test is now false. This reads false. It will stop the execution of the loop. And that's a lot. I said a lot, but that's all it does. And so that's really good. Let's see if it works. Enter a number, 4, number 2. So I just entered the enter key. So 3, wrong. Enter again, 5. That can go on forever. The computer rolled a 6. So S is stop, and that's false, and that's all it goes. So good. So we've learned a couple of things here. Importing the random module to generate a random number, the use of these break keys. Okay, so we could go down the line. Again, reminder that we use an input, and to convert it to an integer or a float, we could actually run the int or float function around that input statement. While the condition is true, run the while loop. When it's false, don't run the while loop, and only run the block of code when the if-else structure evaluates to true. So a lot going on here, but a real simple program. Hopefully you found that of value, and I will see you next time. Take care.